Hello everyone. So let's get started from where we had left in the last video, right? So in this video, we're gonna talk about what is interface, right, and how it is important it is for us. Okay, so we're gonna learn what is interface, okay, and why and where it is used. Okay, so let's get started. So what I'm gonna do here, I'll create a project. Okay, so I'm gonna say new Java project. Let's say this is a part of module 3 and 4. Okay, and oops. Okay, now even before I explain what is interface, let's see how technically it is implemented. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'll create a package new, let's say package 1. Okay, and under this package I'm gonna create one interface. Now keep in mind, when we had created classes, we said new class, but for interface we have to say new and interface basically. Let's say I'm gonna create an interface with the name hospital basically, correct? So the very first thing which you see here is instead of class, now you see it as an interface here. Okay, let me quickly change the font. So go to preferences, general, appearance, colors, font. Then I have a Java, and then you have a Java editor. Go to edit and make it 16. Okay, like this. Okay, now, so if somebody asks a question, what is interface? So interface is like a class, but guys, it contains only method declarations. So what do you mean by method declaration? Let's say I know that hospital provides something called as admission, correct? So if you see, I have just declared the method. Okay, there's no open curly bracket and close curly bracket, right? This is just a declaration. Okay, so interface contains only method declaration. So for example, we know that hospital offers admission, then hospital also offers OPT, right? Then hospital also offers IPD. Okay, just a second, right? So interface is like a class only and it contains only method declarations. I have not implemented it. Okay. Now what happens is basically, so whenever, let's say we have a hospital in the city, let's say Ruby Clinic. So I'm going to create a class called as Ruby Clinic. Okay. Now this Ruby Clinics, the way we saw a class extending another class, we learned that in the inheritance. Similarly, guys, Ruby Clinic can implement this interface. Okay, for example, like this. Okay, so what is the word here? Implements. Okay, so in order to extend class, we use the word extends, but in order to implement the interface, we use word implements. Now, if you have noticed here, the moment I said implements hospital, it means Ruby Clinic is implementing a hospital interface. Immediately, it starts giving you an error. And what this error? It says that whatever methods were declared in the hospital interface, you need to implement them in this class. So mouse over and just say add unimplemented methods. So you would see, guys, whatever methods I had defined in interface, they have got pulled in this particular class. So nothing but this class is overriding the methods which are just declared in the interface basically, right? So let me just do like this. Now this class can have its own method as well apart from the methods it has inherited, correct? So let me create some method. For example, public void, let's say it has x-ray, like this. Okay, like this. This is something specific to Ruby. Okay, so So when a class implements an interface, it is going to inherit, or it is mandated to implement the methods which are declared in interface number one, and it can also contain its own method as well. For example, X-ray, correct? So I'll say Ruby X-ray, correct? I'm gonna say here Ruby Clinic class own method, like this, correct? Now let's say there's another. Okay, just a second. I need to Ruby, let's say IPT. Let me put one text inside it so that you would find it easy to, whenever we run it, we're gonna see the output accordingly, like this. Why we are getting this error? Just a second. Okay, I need to save this basically. Okay, yep. Okay, so the errors are gone. Now the way Ruby Clinic was implementing this hospital interface, similarly, let's say I have another hospital in the city, and that is called as Nobel. Okay, now again this Nobel hospital implements hospital interface, correct? The moment you establish the relationship, hospital interface will mandate Nobel class to implement all the methods which are just declared in the interface basically, right? So if you see, so this is, let's say, Nobel and admission, correct? Then you have sys out, again Nobel, and you have OPD, correct? And like this. Okay, so all this class also is giving its own implementation, correct? Like this. So what we did in fact here, so we were having a hospital interface, and this hospital interface is being implemented by Nobel and Ruby Clinic. But what we are achieving out of this, guys? Okay, so just a second, let me create this public void. Let's say this has cancer treatment. Okay, like this, its own method. This is like this, and this is Nobel. Let's say cancer treatment. This is not the overridden method, by the way. Okay? It's this class is having its own method, right? So what we are achieving here, guys? Okay, so whenever you have an interface basically, okay, so interfaces help us creating a consistency across different modules, or rather I would say it helps us defining, uh, or rather it helps us creating standardized structure across your project. So how, what does it mean basically? So basically, whoever has introduced this hospital concept, okay, in this world, he thought that hospital should have so and so facilities. So that was his idea, and he just declared it. Okay, now tomorrow whoever is coming up with hospital in the city, he is mandated to, implement these methods in his own style. So there won't be any hospital in this world which is not providing this facility. So this is how it is creating a consistency across different modules, right? Now how, guys, this is related from a Selenium perspective? Okay, so in Selenium, okay, just a second, let me open MS Paint. Okay, so in Selenium, guys, WebDriver basically is your interface. Okay, let me, and this interface is basically implemented by different browsers. Okay, so let me just create this diagram. Okay, so whenever it's an interface, guys, okay, it's always a dotted line. Okay, we saw that in case of inheritance it's a straight line, but if it's a interface, then it would be like this, and the arrow would be towards interface. Okay, so in this case, WebDriver is your interface. Okay, and this WebDriver is implemented by different classes, right? For example, you have iDriver. Okay, then you have Chrome. Okay, then you have Firefox driver, like this. Okay, meaning whoever has introduced WebDriver in this world, okay, he has declared certain methods in it. For example, you have get, okay, you have close, then quit. But what he did, he just declared them. Now whoever is implementing it, for example, Internet Explorer driver is implementing it, so Internet Explorer driver class is mandated to give the implementation of this methods, correct? Let's say Chrome driver is also implementing, so again Chrome driver is mandated to implement this method in its class. Basically, Firefox is also mandated, and so on and so forth. So what we are achieving here, so if you see here from an end user perspective, all he should know is what methods this WebDriver interface is providing, right? So once he knows these methods, and if he creates object of respective classes, he's gonna call those methods respectively, correct? So that is how WebDriver interface is related from a Selenium perspective, right? So let me repeat. So Selenium WebDriver is an interface, and it is implemented by different classes such as iDriver, Chrome driver, and Firefox driver, basically. Okay. Now let's see how it works basically. Correct. So let's try to invoke these particular structures. So what I'm gonna do here, I'll just say here test hospital. Okay, and in this test hospital I'm gonna create a main method very first, because I want to invoke my code, so I should have a main method. Now the first thing is, guys, you cannot instantiate an object of interface. Okay, meaning like this. Okay, you cannot create, just a second, like this. Okay, because hospital is what? Hospital is an interface, so you cannot create an object of interface, guys, keep in mind. Okay, you, let me write down, you cannot create object of interface, correct? Or in other words, you cannot instantiate an object of interface. Basically, interfaces, why? Because interface contains only the method declaration, so there's no point creating an object of it. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I'll create Ruby Clinic r1 equals to new of Ruby Clinic, like this. What I did, I'm creating an object of Ruby Clinic, okay, and the reference of Ruby Clinic. So if you see, if I call r1 dot, it can very well call admission, then r1 dot opt, and then r1 dot ipd, basically, right? And then r1 dot, let's say, x-ray. So what I'm doing, I'm creating an object of Ruby Clinic and giving the reference of Ruby Clinic itself. So this R1 can call all the methods of Ruby Clinic class, correct? Of course, there are original methods of the interfaces as well here. Similarly, I can also do something called as Nobel n1 equals to new of Nobel, correct, like this. And I can very well call n1 dot admission, n1 dot OPD, then N1 dot IPD, and then N1 dot, let's say, cancer treatment, like this. Okay, so again, object of Nobel, reference of Nobel. So this N1 can call all the methods of all the inherited methods of interface plus its own method, basically, correct? Now there is another way, guys, which I already discussed in the last video, that you can create object of Nobel and give the reference of interface, basically like this. Okay, or rather, let me delete this and let me create a separate class for that to explain that. Okay, so if you see, I've created like this, and if I run this, I'm gonna see here, guys. Okay, respective methods have been invoked here. Just a second, let me pull like this. Do you see? So the first block, this block is basically creating this output. Correct? These methods have been invoked from the Ruby class. Correct? The next four lines are invoking the Nobel class, basically, right? Now there is another way of declaration, guys, which I already explained. Let me show you that. Okay, I'm gonna create a main method here. Okay, so the what is that way? So I'm gonna say here, create an object of Ruby Clinic. Okay, and you can give the reference of hospital. Like for example, in the previous video I talked about, let's say hospital is the parent class and animal, sorry, animal is the parent class, tiger and elephant, these are the subclasses, child classes. So I can create an object of, let's say, elephant and give the reference of animal. Okay, or object of tiger, reference of animal, right? We saw about that. And this is useful when you just want to create one reference and point it to the different objects, basically. That's the main purpose of this kind of technique. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I will create a reference first like this. What I created a reference h1 of interface hospital, and now guys I want to point this h1 reference to Ruby Clinic, right? Because I want to call Ruby Clinic method. So I'm going to say h1 dot admission, h1 dot opd, h1 dot ipd. Now if you see, since this is a reference of interface, it cannot call the methods which were specific to Ruby Clinic. It means h1.xray it cannot call, basically. Correct? Now let's say my work related to Ruby Clinic is done. So now I'm gonna point this h1 to what? To Nobel, like this. Okay, and I can call h1 dot again admission, h1 dot opd, and h1 dot ipd, and like this, right? So this is the third way of declaration, and what benefit we are achieving here is that with just single reference, so we created just one reference here and we are pointing that reference wherever we want, basically. That's the benefit we are getting here. Okay, and keep one thing in mind. So here h1 cannot call methods which are specific to that class, basically. For example, Ruby Clinic was having a specific method called as X-ray, right? So h1 cannot call X-ray here because I'm giving a reference of hospital here, correct? I have already explained this concept in detail in the previous video, so you can just watch that as well. All right guys, thanks for watching this video. See you again.